Thank you for joining the RTC's Transportation Access Advisory Committee meeting. Madam Chair Payton, staff is ready for you to begin.
Thank you, Reagan. And good afternoon to everyone. This is Jean Payton for the record. I'm calling to order the March 24th, 2021 meeting of the Transportation Access Advisory Committee. We'll begin the meeting with Reagan doing a roll call, an introduction of staff who will be joining us today, and a few housekeeping rules. So Reagan, are you ready?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Reagan Lively, Management Analyst for the RTC, for the record. I will be calling your name in alphabetical order. Please confirm your attendance as I read your name. Nancy Broom.
Present.
Evander Davis.
Present.
Raymond Fletcher.
Present.
Janai Gassion.
Present.
Dan Hyde.
Present.
Elizabeth Elogan.
Present.
Dr. Christine Moninghoff.
Present.
Chuck Newhomer.
Present.
And Madam Chair Jean Payton.
Present.
Thank you. Please note that we have several RTC staff on the line for today's meeting. This includes Dan Holland, Director of Paratransit and Specialized Services, Ms. Antoinette Braddock, Manager of Paratransit Operations and Specialized Services, Ms. Tony Pagano, Quality Assurance Supervisor, Mr. Roger Johnson, Vehicle Maintenance Supervisor, Mr. Nathan Goldberg, Manager of Transit Planning, Mr. Kit Din, Project Delivery Manager, and Kenny Rodriguez, Manager of Customer Care. As the chair mentioned, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. When the chair asks for comments from the committee or calls for a vote, please remember to unmute yourself before speaking. Remember to state your name for the record before providing comment. Be sure to mute your line if you are not speaking. Voting will be done verbally. The chair will call for ayes and nays. If there are no nays, then the motion will carry. If there are nays, then a roll call vote will be required. In the event of a roll call vote, please wait for your name to be read to provide your vote. The chair will call for any comments or questions after an item has been presented. Thank you, Chairwoman Payton.
Thank you, Reagan. And before we begin, I'd like to ask Dan Howland to just speak for a moment about the public comment part of this agenda. Dan?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. Dan Howland, Director of Paratransit and Specialized Services, for the record. As you know, on March 22nd, 2020, the State of Nevada's Executive Department issued Declaration of Emergency Directive 006, which suspended the requirement to have a physical location for public meetings. Pursuant to Directive 006 and for the health and safety of the community, this meeting is being held telephonically. So for the first citizens participation period, Ms. Reagan Lively will read the public comments received by the RTC. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dan. And this opens our first item number 1 on the agenda. It's our first session of public comment. And individuals have been invited to make comments on the RTC website. This session, they must be related directly to today's agenda. And comments will be read by Reagan, but it will be limited to the first 500 words. However, if there's a comment that is longer than 500 words, it will appear in the minutes in its totality. So, Reagan, are there any public comments on the agenda today?
Thank you, Chairwoman Payton. Reagan Lively, Management Analyst for the RTC, for the record. There are no public comments at this time. Madam Chair, that concludes this section of public comments received.
Thank you very much, Reagan. So now we're on to item number 2, which is the approval of the minutes of the January 27th, 2021 meeting of the TAAC committee. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, this is Dan Hyde. I move to approve.
Thank you, Dan. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as they were sent? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And any nays? Okay, those minutes are approved. Numbers 3 and 4 are the consent agenda, and in order to speak to anything listed in those items 3 and 4, you would have to ask that they be removed from the consent agenda. I'll first ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, it's Dan Hyde again. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Dan. Would anyone like to remove any item from the consent agenda at this point so that it can be discussed? Hearing nothing, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And now we're into the real meat of the meeting for today. We will start with a presentation on the collaboration between the RTC and the 3 Square Food Bank in delivering meals to homebound seniors during the pandemic. And Antoinette Braddock will speak to this issue. So Antoinette?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Antoinette Braddock, Manager of Paratransit and Specialized Services for the RTC. So today I'm happy to tell you about a collaborative project that was imagined and put to quick action as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The RTC teamed up with 3 Square Food Bank to deliver groceries to homebound seniors in our community, ensuring they have nutritious meals over the last year. As we are all acutely aware of the hardships caused by COVID-19 pandemic throughout our community and beyond, but every now and again we find a silver lining, or as I like to say, a small ray of sunshine through the clouds. And this project is just one example. And with that, I'd like to share with you a video as we tag along for some of those deliveries. You'll play the video, please. Today, we are excited to revisit our partnership with 3 Square Food Bank for meal delivery for seniors across the valley. We started this delivery program in early April to help ensure that seniors that are homebound, unable to get to grocery stores and get food, are able to get the food that they need, and 3 Square is an interesting partner in that. And so again, as we come up on the holidays, we see COVID-19 cases spike. We wanted to ensure that the seniors who are homebound and unable to get their food are able to get it. So we partnered up again, and this is what we're doing today. This partner with 3 Square is an amazing partnership. It's a great way for the RTC and 3 Square to come together to help really vulnerable and homebound seniors in our community. If 3 Square wasn't available and didn't have the food to do this, we would see hundreds of seniors throughout the valley not have food for not just days at a time, but a month at a time. So this partnership is so important and it's so meaningful, and it's really going to benefit a lot of seniors in our community this holiday and in the months to come. So as I mentioned in the video, and some of it through masks might be a little bit hard to hear. So I want to provide you some additional information. So as mentioned in the video, the program originally started in April 2020. And as things started to kind of seem like they were looking a little better with COVID in the summer of 2020,
we paused the program at the end of June. And then as we came up on the holidays, we re-engaged with our paratransit contractor and with 3 Square to resume the deliveries, which we're still providing today. So since April 2020, we have delivered nearly 7,000 boxes of food. And just to put this in context, the boxes of food that we're delivering, it's a month's supply of non-perishable and perishable products like fruit and vegetables and fresh bread. So 7,000 boxes of a month supply worth of food. These boxes went to more than 2,000 individual seniors throughout the Las Vegas Valley. And really, we were able to make this project happen due to the low ridership on paratransit. So essentially, we had a situation where the paratransit ridership declined more than half. And we had empty vehicles. We had paratransit drivers who were there and ready to work. We had a partner in our paratransit contractor, MB Transportation, who was willing and interested in being part of a solution for our community. And then, of course, 3 Square, which brings to the table the necessity, the food. And just kind of putting all of these variables together, we were able to deploy existing paratransit drivers and vehicles and deliver this food to a lot of seniors. So we were essentially, usually paratransit, we take the people to the food or to the services. And in this case, we kind of developed a program where we could bring the food to the seniors. And I think collectively between all of the partners, we really feel that it's been a win-win for everybody involved, whether it's giving the food to the seniors that really need it, or just kind of just that silver lining that helped motivate a lot of people and feel something and find something good through the course of a really difficult time in our community. So with that said, I'll leave it there. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any, but I hope you enjoyed the information. We were enjoying this project.
Are there any questions for Antoinette?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Beth Logan for the record.
Yes, Beth.
I do have a question. So is this a one-time thing that was, or a program that was done during the holidays, or is it an ongoing program?
A good question, Beth. So the video just kind of showed what we were doing over the holidays, but we started the project in April of 2020 when COVID was kind of hitting everything. So we're now currently still doing it. So we went from April 2020 through the end of June 2020. We stopped the deliveries, and then we re-engaged partnership with 3 Square end of November, beginning of December, and we're currently still providing those deliveries. Right now, we are providing the deliveries with 3 Square on a month-by-month basis because, as you can imagine, as we're seeing things starting to change with increased vaccinations, opening of services, and that kind of thing, our paratransit ridership is starting to increase, which means the bandwidth or the unused assets that we had during COVID aren't as unused anymore. So it is a year project because of COVID, but it will likely come to an end in the months to come.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have a statement to make, and that is that I think this is just a wonderful opportunity to serve the community in yet a different way. So I congratulate RTC on this collaboration with with Three Square and the involvement of the contractor. It's just a wonderful project. So thank you, Antoinette.
Thank you, Chair Payton. We appreciate that and we feel the same way. Thank you.
Cool. All right, thanks. Then number 6 on our agenda is a further update on the web-based and mobile technology products that are going to be handed out to ADA paratransit folks soon. And this is going to be given by Tonya Pagano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonya Pagano, Quality Assurance Supervisor for the RTC for the record. Today, I will be providing an update on the My RTC Para product and the subsequent pilot program. As a quick reminder, the My RTC Para is a web-based and mobile technology product that will allow customers to schedule, track, and manage their own paratransit rides initially online using the web and then subsequently through use of an app. I believe at the time of the last update provided to this committee, Trapeze, who is the technology's developer, was working to resolve some development items they identified during their testing process before we at the RTC could begin our internal testing. Next slide, please. We were given the go-ahead to begin our internal testing in late February and completed that testing process mid-March. Our findings were compiled and provided to the developer, who is currently working on solutions to the items we notated, the majority of which were minor issues such as verbiage, but there were, however, a few technical pieces outstanding that they are expected to complete next week. Once the developer has corrected the outstanding items, we will begin rollout of the pilot program to a small group of participants. Next slide, please. We have identified an initial group of customers using a set of selection criteria, the first being paratransit ridership. We identified clients who regularly use paratransit and who averaged 20 or more rides per month from October of 2020 to January of 2021. That was the initial timeframe used to be prepared in the event we could launch the pilot sooner than we were able to, but we have continued to track to ensure that the customers selected have maintained that level of ridership through February and March. We just want to make sure that they're booking enough rides that we can get some valuable feedback as they're working through the pilot. Next is RideCheck usage. We identified customers who are familiar with our current web-based product, RideCheck, and had used it to book some or all of their rides during the same time frame for the purposes of product and functionality comparison. We looked at disability and mobility aids. We wanted to make sure that we were including a diverse group of customers who could test system accessibility and the functionality of the system to properly book rides with all available mobility aids. So in other words, not selecting customers who all use the same mobility aids. And then ride-on-demand usage, we wanted at least a portion of the participants selected to have experience using the ride-on-demand app, so that as we get closer to rolling out the app portion, we have customers involved in the pilot process who already know how to use the app and book rides on an app and can provide feedback on the app functionality. We're planning to reach out to the selected pilot program participants next week with an anticipated launch date of Monday, April 6th. We're going to start with a small group of approximately 5 or so customers and then add small groups of pilot participants once we assess how things are going with the initial group. We're focusing on small groups initially to ensure that we provide really hands-on assistance to those participating and be accessible to provide that assistance in real time. It will also allow us the ability to properly record participant feedback to share with the developer to get any issues resolved prior to full product launch. We anticipate conducting the pilot for a minimum of 30 days, which would put us into early May. And then at that time, we should have a better idea of how quickly we can roll the product out for all customers based on the success of the pilot and any time needed by the developer to address any issues that arise during that process. And that concludes my prepared presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Tonya? Hearing none, I guess not. So by our June meeting, we should probably have an update, our July meeting rather, we should probably have an update on the situation, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, well, thank you very much. That was good.
Thank you.
Number 7 on our agenda is a presentation by RTC staff on the Ion air cleaner installation. And so it's a program, and that will be given by Roger Johnson. So Roger, you ready?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Roger Johnson, Vehicle Maintenance Supervisor for the record. And I will be providing a brief update for our installation regarding our Ion air cleaner installations. This is a product from Climate Comfort Technologies that we're using as a critical piece to our COVID-19 response and our 14-point safety plan. The intent is to offer RTC's ridership a safe and cleaner and more pleasing environment. We are quickly outfitting our entire fleet, over 800 fixed route and paratransit vehicles. Ionization is a widely adopted technology in many applications, including mass transit, hospitals, casinos, schools, and aviation. Ionization has been proven to be safe and efficient and elevated concentrations against aerosolized microbiological contaminants and small particles in occupied spaces such as our transit vehicles. We are prioritizing installations and performing them as quickly as possible. And our fixed route installations, we have 100% complete. Our 60-foot vehicles, we are 41% complete. And our paratransit vehicles are just starting off a little bit slower than anticipated due to some supply chain issues and engineering modifications that had to take place for fitment. So new vehicles are being purchased with the devices pre-installed. And the maintenance of these items are very minimal. The emitters are usually inspected during routine maintenance and just wiped off. And the emitters for the ions require replacement once every 4 years. We did prepare a video demonstrating what the installation process looks like, if we can share that video. Hi, I'm Roger Johnson with the RTC Fleet Department, and today I'm going to walk you through some of our process for installing a Climate Comfort Technologies Air Ionizer Cleaner. First, we remove these panels from the air conditioning system and mount the bracket and the device. Next, we run power supply cables from a power source and connect the power supply to the device. Next, we reassemble all the panels. And lastly, we perform a test for the output. And that is the end of the presentation. I'd be glad to take any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions for Roger?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Dan Hyde. Roger, you mentioned that paratransit has not, you haven't had any installed yet. Do you have a timeline as to when that's going to happen?
Yes, we actually do have some of them installed. We started with 6 now with test fitments, and as we find these 6 vehicles installed, we're finding a more fluid process for the installations. We have 60 units on property to start installations. So I don't have a timeline for completion yet. I think it has a lot of fluidity built into it based on vehicles out of service and routine maintenance needing to be performed. But I would anticipate within 2 more months, 3 more months, we should be complete with installs.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
Chair, Betty Logan for the record.
Yes, Beth.
I just have a question for Roger. I'm not familiar with the ionic filter, but like the HEPA the HEPA cleaners, they have filters. How are these ionic air cleaners maintained?
The maintenance process of it, because it's not actually a filter, it's considered a cleaner. What it does is the ions attract themselves to other molecules and it weighs them down and makes them heavy, and they will be trapped in the existing filters. So it really enhances the existing filters on the vehicle. So routine maintenance of replacing the existing filters are what will keep the vehicle clean, just more efficient use of them.
I see. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions for Roger? I guess not. Thank you, Roger. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Number 8 on the agenda now is a presentation on the COVID-19 transit data, and that will be given by Nathan Goldberg. So Nathan?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Nathan Goldberg, Manager of Transit Planning for the record. This presentation will cover a handful of items that the RTC is actively tracking and reporting related specifically to service during the COVID pandemic. This information is updated and posted to the RTC's website and is assisting the RTC in making decisions regarding service and keeping the public informed on the most up-to-date information. Next slide, please. Thank you. The first slide here is our revenue. You may recall that initially in April of 2020, the RTC implemented the industry best practice of going fare free for a period of time, kind of as everything was closed down and many people were out of work with everything fully shut down. People still needed to get to those critical appointments and to run their critical errands. And many systems around the country adopted that practice of going entirely fare free. We then began recollecting fares in June of 2020, and also you can see kind of when we went from Sunday schedules back to Saturday schedules, but due to the reduction in ridership that is still there, fares have been consistently roughly half of their pre-pandemic levels. Next slide, please. The next item here is regional vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. VMT measures a variety of things for us. It tells us about, obviously, the traffic volumes and how much you can kind of get a sense of how much things are open based on how much people are kind of moving around and feeling free to do things. This impacts transit on-time performance based on the levels of traffic. It has an impact on FRI funding because it obviously has an impact on how much fuel people are purchasing to make those trips in their personal vehicles. Has an impact on the expediency of construction projects. We're less likely to close more lanes and do work more quickly if traffic volumes are higher, as well as a variety of other aspects of the RTC's operations. VMT had gone down considerably during the initial shutdown, but has now, especially in the last couple of weeks, returned to near pre-pandemic levels as vaccinations start to, be conducted and things begin to open up and we return on a path toward normalcy. Next slide. We have here our transit on-time performance. Due to the lower traffic volumes as well as the lower ridership levels that we kind of talked about with the last couple of slides, on-time performance has been at historically high levels for our system for much of the last year. We are closely monitoring that on-time performance as a key indicator of when and how to adjust service to meet demand. With service operating on Saturday schedules currently, on-time performance is more imperative on many routes because obviously the frequency is lower on many of our routes due to that Saturday schedule versus the weekday schedule. So if your bus is only every, say, 30 minutes instead of every 15 minutes, it's even more critical that vehicle is on time for you. Next slide. And finally here we have our average non-strip ridership. You can see this has been a little bit more volatile, kind of on a almost week to week or month to month basis, depending upon what's going on, what the weather is, school situations and whatnot. But we are following this very closely. It is still below what a pre-pandemic Sunday was. You can see that red line there is kind of what a pre-pandemic Sunday looked like, and we're still a little bit below that. But that doesn't really tell the full story here, because we have a couple different things going on. Obviously, you have that Saturday schedule involved in this, but we also have to observe limited capacity due to social distancing. So it's not, it's not just as simple as adjusting service as soon as you see the weekday ridership cross that red line. You kind of have to add all of these things together and then add the caveat of the capacity issue and what social distancing requirements are at those times in order to kind of get the full picture of what's going on. So it all kind of goes together, and the RTC will continue to monitor this data closely and adjust service levels when appropriate based on this information. All of this is updated on our website as soon as it is available, typically once a week. There's an update that goes out on this information. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Are there any questions for Nathan? I do have one question, Nathan. If you have certain routes that are historically really pretty busy, and have they come back pretty much the way they were before? I'm taking the strip out of this question, but I'd talk about maybe Maryland Parkway or something like that. Are those coming back, and are you having any impact on needing more service, more buses because of the social distancing, or are we still okay?
Excellent question. So on a variety of our routes, we've actually been looking at this on a by trip basis, literally every trip that's made in the system, and cross-referencing that with capacity. We know how many people are on the bus, right? So on each trip, and so we can look at that versus what the acceptable capacity is for social distancing requirements. And if we see that a trip is consistently experiencing more passengers than there should be, we are adding what we call a trailer coach. Basically, what we'll do is we have there's the regularly scheduled bus, and then immediately behind it, we'll have another one. Okay. And that way, when you see the buses, if you see a bus on the street that says this bus is full, there hopefully should be another bus immediately behind it to pick up any of those passengers that were passed up because they could not get on due to social distancing requirements. That's the way that's been handled for several months now, and we'll change that. We've been changing that up fairly regularly. We'll change that up, I think, even in the next couple of weeks here, because capacity will increase a little bit, and then ultimately, when we go to full weekday schedules again, that will get us where we need to be.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for Nathan?
Madam Chair, Raymond Fletcher for the record.
Yes, Raymond.
Do you have an idea, Nathan, when we will be switching up from Saturday schedules to regular scheduling?
At the moment, we're looking at early August, but to kind of commiserate with school opening back up. But that's subject to change. We could do that earlier if things open up quicker.
Well, I happen to notice today that, Madam Chair, the World Concrete, whatever you want to call it, one of the first big shows is coming to the Valley for conventions. I'm wondering how that's going to affect people that need to get to work, people that work in the convention industry their abilities to get to work and everything else.
Yes, we are definitely keeping an eye on the conventions and the special events that are starting to come back online. Additionally, I believe the vast majority of the strip properties are going to be open 24/7. Again, shortly, I saw the Wynn and Encore were about to open back up. And then, various other events are upping their capacities, such as, say, the Golden Knights games and things like that are going from, they quickly went from 15% to 20%. And I think they're looking at, moving that, bumping those numbers up rather quickly. So definitely something we're keeping our finger on the pulse of, and we'll be as ready to go as possible.
One more question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Nathan, what lengths, what efforts are we going through to educate the operators on the CDC's requirements for masks? I want to use my situation in particular. Due to my disability, I cannot safely put on or take off a mask on my own. So under the federal guidelines, I'm exempt from wearing a mask. However, when I go out in public, when I try to utilize public transportation, I feel as if I'm being harassed. The bus drivers are often having to call into radio dispatch, which has everybody on the bus staring at me, waiting for figure out what's going to happen with me. What efforts are we going through to educate these individuals so people with disabilities like myself don't feel like they're put on the spot or in a difficult position, so to speak? Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Excellent question. Excellent point on that. I will have to get back to you on exactly what those educated measures are. I'll have to ask the contractors on exactly what that has been doing. That's not been my area of focus with regard to this. So I don't really want to say something, speak out of turn here that isn't accurate. So we will take a look at that and get back to you.
Madam Chair, Dan Howland, Director of Pedestrian.
Yes, Dan.
In response to Mr. Fletcher's question and Nathan's comments, the RTC is following the state and federal guidelines from the Biden administration on the federal mandate. We have updated our signage on the paratransit buses and in conjunction with our government affairs group, along with the fixed route. And
Hey, Dan, this is Reagan. We can just barely hear you. Can you move a little closer to your microphone, please?
Yes, apologize for that. So with respect to the comments from Mr. Fletcher and the question, we are certainly working with our government affairs group, meeting that mandate, encouraging people to wear face coverings, and we'll follow up with Mr. Fletcher and the committee in regards to our efforts in regards to educating people. But I can tell you that from a paratransit standpoint, we have followed up with customers just to simply remind them of the policy, and they will note that they have health conditions or physical conditions where they're not able to wear the mask, and that's understandable, and we provide transportation. So we'll follow up. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Any other questions for Nathan? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Nathan. It's interesting presentation. And we'll move on to item number 9 on our agenda. And this will be a presentation on the Las Vegas Medical District Automated Circulator and Pedestrian Safety Program. And this is going to be given by Kit Din. Kit, are you ready?
Thank you, Chair Payton. Kit Din, Project Delivery Manager for the record. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It is a great pleasure to have this opportunity to provide you with a brief update on the progress of the Las Vegas Medical District Automated Circulator and Connected Pedestrian Safety Program. That's a mouthful. It's more commonly referred to and known as Gomed. Next slide, please. First, I'd like to provide the committee with an overview of Gomed. So what is Gomed? Gomed is an advanced mobility program deploying several emergent technologies to create safer and more efficient travel to, from, and within the Las Vegas Medical District. I will be providing more details on these technologies on the next slide. The Gomed Autonomous Vehicle Circulator is planned to connect the Bonneville Transit Center to the Medical District. Autonomous transit vehicle circulators will traverse the approximately 3.3 mile route frequently at approximately 8-minute headways, 9 hours daily. Additionally, the project will help improve pedestrian mobility and safety within the medical district, and in particular, and especially for the elderly and people with mobility challenges. The overarching benefit for the community is that the project will connect medical district patients, visitors, employees, and students to essential healthcare services, employment, and education conveniently and safely. The project is federal grant funded through the U.S. Department of Transportation, better utilizing investments to leverage development transportation discretionary grant, also known as the Build Grant project. The total project budget for Gomed is $8.2 million, and $5.3 million is funded with the federal grant, approximately 65% of the overall program budget. Next slide, please. The first technology in the project scope are autonomous transit vehicles. As part of the project scope, we will be leasing 4 electric and autonomous vehicles that meet the following federal requirements as per our grant agreement with the US DOT. Buy America, Americans with Disabilities Act, and Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. The second technology in the project scope is pedestrian detection. Pedestrian detection sensors will be deployed at 20 key signalized and uncontrolled crosswalks. The key feature of this technology is that it detects the presence of pedestrians, requests a pedestrian call with adequate clearing time at signalized intersections, or it activates a flashing beacon at uncontrolled crosswalks for pedestrians to cross safely. Additionally, this technology will integrate with connected vehicle roadside units to broadcast pedestrian safety alerts to the autonomous vehicles and also to connected vehicles as well. The third technology in the project scope are smart transit shelters. 23 general market shelters will be retrofitted with smart technologies to improve the comfort, safety, and overall user experience. These include electronic displays to provide real-time transit information, smart lighting, Wi-Fi, temperature and air quality sensors, and also security cameras. 9 of the 23 shelters are designated as Gomed transit stops, and 6 of 9 of these designated stops will also have dynamic wayfinding kiosks. These retrofitted smart transit shelters will be branded for the Las Vegas Medical District. The fourth technology in the project scope are connected vehicles. We will be deploying 20 roadside units to communicate with the 4 autonomous vehicles and 300 onboard units to be installed on vehicles that travel frequently through the medical district. The roadside units will broadcast signal phasing and timing and safety messages, and also send speed limit and pedestrian safety alerts to the autonomous vehicles and vehicles with onboard units. The fifth technology in the project scope is dashboard analytics. This entails a central dashboard, data hub, dashboard, and analytics platform to interface, process, and exchange data with all of the Gomed technologies or systems. This platform will serve as the primary tool for data collection, systems monitoring, and performance analysis. The sixth and final technology in the project scope is traveler information. There are 2 existing apps, RideRTC and Go Vegas, that will be updated and enhanced to help Gomed users in trip planning and decision making. And additionally, traveler and wayfinding information will also be provided via the digital displays and kiosks installed at the smart transit shelters. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the project's proposed 3.3 mile autonomous transit vehicle route and the proposed 23 smart transit shelter locations. The route originates at the Bonneville Transit Center, heads west on Bonneville Avenue, Alta Drive, south on Shadow Lane, slightly west on Hastings Avenue and does a loop around, back north on Shadow Lane, west on Wellness Way, north on Tonopah Drive, and east on Pinto Lane, north on Shadow Lane, and finally east on Alta Drive, Bonneville Avenue, back to the Bonneville Transit Center. The designated Gomed transit stop locations are identified by the 9 blue stars you see on the map. 6 of these 9 smart transit shelters will also include interactive wayfinding kiosks, and that is denoted by a purple dot in a blue star. The 14 green stars on the map identify the remaining smart transit shelter locations that serve RTC fixed route service. Next slide, please. On this slide, you see the project's 20 proposed pedestrian detection focus areas as denoted by the red boxes. 13 of the 20 pedestrian detection focus areas are at signalized intersections, while the remaining 7 are at uncontrolled crosswalks. The uncontrolled crosswalks are located on Shadow Lane, and those are red boxes number 8, 9, 10, and 11, and on Tonopah, and those are red boxes number 14, 15, and 16. And the remaining 13 of the pedestrian detection areas are at the signalized intersections. Next slide, please. Currently, we have just commenced our detailed design phase of the project. On March 11th, the RTC Board of Commissioners approved the award of a design contract to our design consultant team. We just issued a notice to proceed to the design team on March 22nd. Overall, the design consultant team includes 6 Nevada-based or national firms with a strong local presence. Additionally, the team includes 2 DBE, SBE Nevada-based firms to meet the project's 8.6% goal. Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. is the prime contractor, and they have 5 subcontractors on their team. The subcontractors on the team are Parsons, O'Connor Construction Management, Casas Electric, Erica Aviles Consulting, and Value Management Strategies. The 2 DBEs on this design team are Casas Electric and Erica Aviles Consulting. Next slide, please. Regarding the overall project schedule, as I mentioned, we have just commenced our detailed design phase of the project, and we plan to complete 100% design by early September. Previously, the project has completed its early foundational systems engineering phases with the completion of the project's concept of operations, system requirements, and high-level conceptual design. Additionally, I'd like to highlight that the target date for the launch of the Gomed service is by no later than June 30th, 2023, and that is in alignment with our project grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation. Next and final slide, please. Next steps for the project include formally kicking off our detailed design phase now that our NTP has been issued. Prepare our preliminary 30% design, provide an update and request feedback at the next TAAC meeting in May. Conduct public outreach activities post preliminary 30% design submittal. And lastly, as previously mentioned, 100% design is anticipated to complete in September of this year, and construction is anticipated to begin in late January 2022. So that concludes my presentation today. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Kit? It sounds like a pretty exciting project. I think it can really help that whole district and maybe keep a lot of the car traffic away while people are using more of the public transit. So that's good.
Yes, Madam Chair, we're really excited about this project and the deployment, and all of our community stakeholders are just as excited. And we look forward to updating you at the next TAAC meeting on our 30% design.
Great. Well, thank you. Last chance. Any questions for Kit? All right. Well, thank you very much. It was real interesting. Number 10 on our agenda is an opportunity to discuss topics of interest, and that will be led by Dan Howland. Dan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan Howland, Director of Paratransit and Specialized Services for the record. This item is to provide an opportunity for committee members to share updates or information with other members. But before we open it up, I'd like to make a few comments about the last meeting in follow-up to your request, Chair Payton, to have a running list of requests from committee members and follow-up. So in the January 2021 meeting, there was a comment about follow-up from the RTC on committee member requests. I did have conversations on this and found that we were not deficient in our follow-up, but the follow-up fell a little short of expectations. We certainly at the RTC pride ourselves on the follow-up to this committee meeting, and I want to share questions and requests and responses from the last meeting in January of 2021. Number one was about the PassWeb based mobile technology test pilot, and Mr. Havander Davis, a tech committee member, expressed interest, and it is confirmed that based on the criteria that Ms. Tanya Pagano went over in her presentation earlier in this meeting, that he met the criteria. So thank you, Havander, for your participation. The second item was the cost per paratransit ride and percentage of budget allocated to employee salaries. That was requested from Mr. Dan Hyde, committee member for TAAC, and that will be provided in a future presentation that will go to the commission and the TAAC. The third item was from committee member Beth Ilagan. She inquired about the paratransit ridership in 2020, as well if there was a budget surplus as a result of decreased demand. Director of Finance, Sherwin Gutierrez, was presenting, and he said that demand had declined, but cost due to safety went up, and specifics will be provided in a future presentation. And then the last item that was requested was from Mr. Raymond Fletcher, and he requested a breakdown from Director of Finance, Sherwin Gutierrez, budget presentation that would show how funds can be used for some items and what items the funds cannot be spent on. I don't have other specifics than that, but this is in development for a future presentation. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to open it up to the committee members to give them the opportunity to share updates or information with other members. Is there anybody who would like to share anything from the committee?
Is there anyone that has comments to make at this point?
Madam Chair, it's Beth Ilagan for
Yes,
the record.
Beth.
Just out of curiosity, because there's a lot of hate crimes happening in New York, in the subway as well, you know, people riding in public transportation. Is that something that we see here in Las Vegas? Because I don't really listen to the news regularly, so I was just wondering.
Beth, Dan Howland here. Would you just repeat the beginning of that question? I was unable to hear it.
This is regarding hate crimes to riderships, you know, like there was a recent one, an Asian American woman was urinated on while she was riding the subway in New York. I was just wondering, do we have things like that happening here? Because I've never heard recently anything, you know, so I was just curious about it.
Right. It's an excellent question, Dan Howland, for the record. So in response, you know, obviously the fixed route has a marksman security contracted and patrolling the routes and dispatch the routes when there are issues. But I don't have any specifics or knowledge of any so-called hate crimes on our service. But that is something that we can follow up on. Thank you for the
Thank
question.
you. That's very comforting. Thank you.
Hi, Madam Chair, Evander Davis for the record.
Yes. Yes, Evander.
Dan, I have been getting some complaints from some of our members that they are getting certain trips, say they schedule a certain trip, but then when it's time for the bus to come, the driver has a different time than what they were told they have. Can we look into that and see if that's being done or what's going on with that?
Yes, Evander, Dan Howland for the record. What we'll do is we'll get with you directly to get some more specifics and do some follow-up on that and investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Raymond.
Just a couple things. Who would we go to inquire about a crosswalk button being put in along, for example, along Decatur near the Smiths by Desert Inn? There's a crosswalk button, and there's also a walkway over by the Cashman Middle School that students use that some may have seen in the news. In the past, police have had to stop, and they gave out over 100 tickets, and people are frequently using this crosswalk, but there's no actual symbol. Is there any way we can ask someone to look at that and what the possibility might be to increase pedestrian safety over in that area?
Hi, Madam Chair, Dan Howland for the record. So, Raymond, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Obviously, that is not the RTC's jurisdiction, but we do partner with the municipalities, and we will follow up with our engineering department to check with the appropriate municipality, get some specifics from you, and see if there's anything that can be done in follow-up, okay?
All right, thank you.
Could I ask, this is Jean Payton for the record. I'd like to ask Raymond, I didn't hear, is there a crosswalk button near the Smiths on Decatur, or is there not?
Madam Chair, on Decatur, there is one crossing Decatur.
Okay. Does it cover the entire intersection or just Decatur?
It's part ways up from Desert Inn if you're traveling north towards Sahara.
Uh-huh.
It's before, I believe that's Penwood. It's between Penwood and Desert Inn. And there's a button that you press. So it's not like a stoplight. It's, say that you show up and you want to cross the street, you can press the button. There's a lot of residents on the other side of Cashman, and, you know, it's a little selfish for me because I'm on the other side as well. But, I mean, even in the crosswalk, even with the laws that we have in place, people are not stopping, allowing pedestrians, ambulatory or otherwise, the ability to cross the street.
Mm-hmm. So is this a thing that will turn a signal light on that indicates that someone is in the crosswalk? What does the button do?
You press a button and a flashing light appears, a yellow flashing light.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Shit.
Are there any other items that we'd like to bring forward? This is a really good opportunity, I think. Well, hearing none, I just would like to say thank you, Dan, for doing this session. And I think it just would be nice to have it on the agenda every month. It keeps us all kind of on our toes.
No, you're welcome, Madam Chair. It is a good idea and great feedback from the committee members, and we will follow up on those items. And I'd just like to say, as I know that my mic was inadvertently covered when I spoke up about the questions in regards to the face covering, We will follow up with Mr. Fletcher, but I did want to say that and thank the riding public, both on paratransit and fixed route, because overall face covering compliance has been really very, very good. And it's never going to be perfect, and it is something that isn't easily enforced with those that don't want to do it. And in Mr. Fletcher's case, certainly understand his situation, and we will do the follow-up. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Item number 11 on the agenda is the second session of public comment, and this will allow anyone from the public to bring up any issue regarding transportation. And again, the comments have been submitted on the website, and they are limited. The reading of them will be limited to the first 500 words, but the entire comment will be included in the minutes of the meeting. And so, Reagan, are there any comments that have been submitted?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Reagan Lively again for the record. There are no public comments at this time. Madam Chair, that concludes the public comment period.
Thank you, Reagan. At this point, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Transportation Access Advisory Committee.
So move.
Thank you, Raymond. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming today.